1988 saw the release of the animation live-action blockbuster Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a feature-length cartoon crossover which paid the ultimate homage to the golden age of American animation, and in the process turned its titular character into a global cartoon superstar. Roger Rabbit was designed to be an amalgamation of various cartoon characters, and the result was some kind of Disney-Looney Tunes hybrid. And his film's runaway success helped usher in the dawn of a new era for Disney and rekindled an interest in classic cartoons. But unfortunately, Roger Rabbit's star waned as quickly as it rose. It's time to pay tribute to the ultimate cartoon tribute, Toon Town's most famous resident, the most loony of all Disney characters. It's time to find out more about who censored, who framed, but ultimately who retired Roger Rabbit. Roger Rabbit is an animated anthropomorphic white rabbit who first appeared in Gary K. Wolfe's 1981 novel Who Censored Roger Rabbit. Wolfe became inspired to write the book after noticing cereal commercials featuring cartoon mascots such as Tony the Tiger and the Trix Rabbit interacting with live-action children, a concept which Wolfe decided to explore further in book form, eventually combining pulp fiction and true crime elements, and in the process creating the character of Roger Rabbit. In the book Who Censored Roger Rabbit, Roger is part of a double act in a popular comic strip, Baby Herman, and Roger hires private detective Eddie Valiant to investigate why his employers have gone back on their promise to give Roger his own strip. And when Roger is found murdered in his own home, Valiant sets out to find the killer. Aside from Eddie Valiant, the book featured other characters who would later appear in the feature film, including Roger's co-star Baby Herman, as well as his ex-wife, Jessica Rabbit. The book was published in 1981, and later that year Walt Disney Productions purchased the film rights. Initial animation tests for Roger began as early as 1982, where he was initially voiced by Paul Reubens, and an early prototype of Roger Rabbit could be seen in the background in the 1987 Goofy cartoon Sports Goofy in Soccer Mania. Eventually, renowned animator Richard Williams was brought into the project, and the film went into full production. Although he was somewhat of a villain in the original novel, for the film, Roger was re-envisioned as a lovable goofball, reminiscent of a stereotypical character in 1940s animated cartoons. Roger was redesigned so as to take elements from major cartoon characters from different studios of that period, and in general was intended to be a combination of Disney's elaborate animation style, together with similar characterization to Warner Brothers characters, and capable of performing Tex Avery-inspired gags. In the book, Roger is described as wearing only a baggy pair of shorts held up by brightly colored suspenders, but for the world of animation was given a complete overall. As an amalgamation of various classic cartoon characters, Roger incorporated many physical features which paid homage to various cartoon stars, such as the gloves of Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny for his rabbit form, Goofy for his baggy overalls, Porky Pig for his bow tie, Droopy for his head and red hair, and Wile E. Coyote for his expressions. Animator Richard Williams described the process of creating him like an American flag with the red overalls, white fur, and blue bow tie so that American audiences would enjoy him on a subliminal level. Comedian Charles Fleischer provided the voice for Roger Rabbit and claims his portrayal of Roger was also inspired by the Tex Avery character Screwy Squirrel. To facilitate Bob Hoskins' performance as Eddie Valiant, Fleischer wore a rabbit costume on the set to get into the role over the entirety of production and stood in behind camera for most scenes, calling it transprojectional acting. The screenplay for the film was developed by Jeffrey Price and Peter S. Seaman, while Robert Zemeckis was brought on to direct and Richard Williams supervised the animation sequences. Who Framed Roger Rabbit was loosely based on Gary K. Wolfe's 1981 novel and is set in an alternate history Hollywood in 1947, predominantly taking place in Toon Town, a fictional and entirely cartoonish Hollywood enclave inhabited by cartoon characters known as Toons. Its plot follows Eddie Valiant, a private investigator with a grudge against Toons, who must help exonerate Roger Rabbit, a Toon who is framed for murder. The film was laden with homages to the golden age of American animation and indeed featured an assortment of classic cartoon characters in what remains the biggest crossover in animation history. Executive producer Steven Spielberg personally convinced various film and animation studios to lend their characters to appear in the film, and in some cases with stipulations on how those characters were portrayed. For example, Disney's Donald Duck and Warner Brothers' Daffy Duck appeared as equally talented dueling pianists, and Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny also shared their famous scene together on the condition that each character receive equal screen time. The film was released under Disney's adult-orientated Touchstone Pictures banner instead of the flagship Walt Disney Pictures, and debuted in American cinemas on June 21, 1988, to immediate box office and critical success, ending its opening weekend in first place at the US box office and becoming Disney's biggest opening weekend ever at the time of its release. Critics especially praised the film for its groundbreaking combination of live action and animation, creating a believable world where cartoon characters interacted seamlessly with real actors, a particularly impressive feat when considering that no computer-generated animation was used and that all of the animation in Who Framed Roger Rabbit was done by hand. The critical and commercial success of the film rekindled an interest in the golden age of American animation, and also helped spark both the silver age of American animation as well as the Disney Renaissance. In addition, the film introduced to the world Disney's latest cartoon superstar, Roger Rabbit, who ended the 80s with a bang and looked set to take the 90s by storm. In November 1988, a few months after the film's release, Roger Rabbit made a guest appearance in the live-action and animated television special broadcast on NBC called Mickey's 60th Birthday, in which Roger played a significant role. That same year, Roger and Jessica Rabbit, together with Eddie Valiant actor Bob Hoskins, appeared in a live-action animated hybrid commercial for Diet Coke, reminiscent of the cereal commercials which inspired Roger's creator Gary K. Wolf all those years ago. From 1989 to 1993, following the success and popularity of the film, 3 animated Roger Rabbit theatrical cartoons were produced by Walt Disney Feature Animation and were released before various Touchstone or Disney feature films in an attempt to revive short-subject animation as part of the overall movie-going experience. The first cartoon was Tummy Trouble in 1989, shown before the film Honey, I Shrunk the Kids in the United States and before the animated film The Little Mermaid in the United Kingdom, followed by Roller Coaster Rabbit in 1990, shown before Dick Tracy, and Trail Mix-Up in 1993, shown before A Far Off Place. Many of the voice actors from the feature film, including Charles Fleischer, returned to voice their respective characters, and also saw the film's producers, headed by Steven Spielberg himself, returning to work on these shorts. Just like in the cartoon shown at the beginning of the film, each of these cartoons featured Roger Rabbit being given responsibility of looking after baby Herman while his mother is away, resulting in heavy slapstick humor and visual gags, reminiscent of classic Looney Tunes cartoons, as well as those by Tex Avery, particularly during his years at MGM Studios. The first short, Tummy Trouble, was produced over the course of 9 months by a staff of 70 Disney animators, and was the first animated short Disney had produced in 15 years to accompany the original release of a feature film, since Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2 in 1974. Each cartoon concludes with a sequence involving live action and animation, in which the cartoon characters interact with live-action human beings, just like in the movie, reminding viewers that the cartoon they just watched is a world within a world, and that Roger Rabbit and company are actors on the movie set producing a cartoon. A fourth short, Hair in My Soup, was cancelled during pre-production, with 3 more in the planning stages before they too were cancelled. For the record, those cartoons were to be called Clean and Oppressed, Beach Blanket Bay, and Bronco Bustin' Bunny. As mentioned, these Roger Rabbit cartoons were an interesting mix of Disney aesthetics and Looney Tunes or Tex Avery style slapstick and visual gags, and interestingly featured Droopy from MGM Studios, who appeared in all 3 cartoons. In general, these Roger Rabbit cartoons are nostalgic throwbacks, homages to the golden age of American animation, complete with title cards which denote the year 1947, the year in which Who Framed Roger Rabbit is supposed to have taken place. Multiple references were made to Roger Rabbit in the Warner Brothers animated series Tiny Toon Adventures, and in 1991, Roger made cameo appearances in 2 episodes, the first coming in the episode New Character Day, where he is seen unsuccessfully auditioning for a role in the show, and then later in the episode Buster and Babs Go Hawaiian, where he is seen with his wife, Jessica Rabbit. In 1996, both Roger and Jessica Rabbit were seen in the background in the direct-to-video animated feature film Aladdin and the King of Thieves, and the last time Roger Rabbit was seen in animated form was a cameo appearance in the 2022 film Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, with Charles Fleischer reprising his role in voicing Roger. Aside from these animated appearances, at least 4 video games featuring Roger Rabbit were released over the space of 3 years, from 1988 to 1991, 2 of the games being based on the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Roger Rabbit was a comic book series by Disney Comics starring characters from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which followed continuity from the film, and which in 1991 also spawned a spin-off series entitled Roger Rabbit's Toon Town, which lasted 5 issues. And in addition to the various comic books, 4 graphic novels have been published featuring Roger Rabbit, Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Tummy Trouble, based on the feature film and animated short, respectively, as well as Roger Rabbit, Who Framed Rick Flint, and Roger Rabbit, The Resurrection of Doom, a graphic novel sequel which took place between the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit and the Roger Rabbit short film Tummy Trouble. Roger Rabbit occasionally appears as a meet-and-greet character at Disney parks, including at Walt Disney World from his debut year up to the year 2000, and was also present at the opening of Disney MGM Studios on May 1st, 1989. Since Roger Rabbit has not been seen in the parks lately, he is now considered retired. Given Roger Rabbit's explosive debut and massive popularity at the end of the 1980s, a sequel film or an animated spin-off series seemed like a no-brainer at the time, yet neither materialized. A Roger Rabbit sequel had been rumored ever since the first movie debuted, but never realistically looked like being made. The first film was incredibly expensive to make, and a sequel would almost certainly have cost even more. As previously, various studios lent their characters to be used in the film on a once-off deal, mainly due to Steven Spielberg's influence, and for a second film there would have been licensing fees involved. On top of that, aside from perhaps the director and the screenwriters, there was never really any interest from anyone involved in the first film to make a sequel. Nevertheless, a sequel had been discussed since as early as 1989. With writer J.J. Abrams reportedly considered a writer for a possible sequel after a meeting with Steven Spielberg, and who had even drawn up an outline for the sequel, but one which never came to fruition. Director Robert Zemeckis has on more than one occasion confirmed the existence of a script for a possible sequel to Who Framed Roger Rabbit. In an interview done with The Telegraph in 2016, Zemeckis mentioned that he did have a screenplay in place for a new film, and which would have moved the story of Roger and Jessica Rabbit into the next few years of period film, moving on from film noir to the world of the 1950s. Disney was cited as the biggest stumbling block to the film ever being made, as according to Zemeckis, the current corporate Disney culture has no interest in Roger, and they certainly don't like Jessica Rabbit. Robert Zemeckis repeated these claims as recently as November 2024 on an episode of the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, where he spoke about a script penned by Peter S. Seaman and Jeffrey Price, the writers responsible for the screenplay for Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and Zemeckis called it a good script, but went on to speculate that the film would never get made by Disney now, mainly because of Jessica Rabbit being too risque, should we say, to be featured in a Disney animated film today. An animated series based on the film also failed to materialize, and the closest we got to one was Bonkers, which ran for one season in 1993 as part of the Disney afternoon block. The premise of the show was very similar to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, this time featuring not a rabbit but an anthropomorphic bobcat named Bonkers, a once popular but now washed-up cartoon star who resides in the same Toon Town as seen in the film, albeit this time inhabited not by characters from different animation studios, but instead exclusively Disney characters. Bonkers is made a junior detective at the Los Angeles Police Department and is partnered with Detective Lucky Pequot, a grim and ill-tempered human who hates toons, reminiscent of Eddie Valiant, but who reluctantly works with Bonkers to solve crimes in and around the Hollywood area. In 2008, Greg Wiseman, who was a writer on the series, did confirm that the Bonkers character as well as the Toon Town concept were both inspired by the film. Roger Rabbit has been almost completely dropped by Disney, treated as a distant memory, not even appearing in the background in a single episode of House of Mouse, a Disney animated series noted for featuring appearances of virtually every other Disney character, including Benny the Cab from the original film, but no Roger or Jessica Rabbit. Roger Rabbit is an anachronistic throwback, used as a vehicle to pay homage to the great cartoon characters who came before him, either by uniting these cartoon stars on screen or by appearing in theatrical shorts which paid tribute to the golden age of yesteryear. And after that, Roger seemed to have outlived his usefulness. But an even bigger problem for Roger is his wife, Jessica Rabbit. Jessica is a parody of Tex Avery's Red, a character who was considered problematic way back in the 1950s and who appeared in a much more toned-down form in the 80s and 90s. Toning down or covering up Jessica Rabbit, as they have done to her at Disneyland, kinda defeats the purpose of what she is supposed to be, and as a result, Jessica is simply considered far too risque for Disney's liking. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a video in the future on Tex Avery's Red character and her Jessica Rabbit counterpart. And also let us know if you have any interest in seeing a sequel to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and if you feel that Roger perhaps deserves a more prominent place among the pantheon of Disney characters. Roger Rabbit's star may have fallen as quickly as it rose, but we're left with a very special movie, one which paved the way for similar films like Cool World and Space Jam. And I'd recommend watching the 3 Roger Rabbit cartoons if you haven't seen them already. It's a pity that not more were made. Please like this video if you learned something today, and feel free to share this video with anyone who might also learn something new. I'll be back again soon with more cartoon history, so until then, thank you for joining me today, and stay tuned for more cartoon history.